three plus north of 3 percentage points in Florida. And I'll tell you, Brett and Martha, the inside numbers guys in the Republican Party in Florida, even at midday today, said Donald Trump, based on the current track of in-person voting today, that he would win the state by upwards of 4 points. That's still possible with 9% of the vote out in the Sunshine State tonight. It looks like he's going to win that today.
Yeah. Thanks,
All right,
Bill.
Bill,
We'll be back to you shortly. The Fox News Decision Desk can now project that Democrats will retain control of the House of Representatives and expand their majority by at least 5 seats. That's a major boost for Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has pledged to roll back much of President Trump's first-term agenda if he loses re-election. So some thoughts on that from our panel. Dana, there have been projections that Democrats could pick up as many as 15 seats in the most recent Cook political analysis. Your thoughts on that call?
Well, again, the suburbs, right? So Carl just mentioned it. We brought it up a few times. If you think back to 2018, when we were here doing midterm election analysis, there were 18 seats that the Democrats were able to flip from red to blue. That was a lot. That was enough to get Nancy Pelosi back into the speaker's role. Now, remember, those 18 were against impeachment of the president. They wanted her to be much more conciliatory towards the president when it came to a second stimulus bill. That never came. And yet they all held on. They were able to raise much more money than the Democrats. They have this as than the Republicans. Carl was mentioning Act Blue. They were just flooded with money. So they were able to hold on to those seats. And not only that, but then they gained another 5, as if this analysis is accurate, maybe even more. And I think that when you look at the suburban districts, that will be interesting. And one other point on that is this is 2020, so it's the beginning of a new decade. That means that we have a census, and you will have redistricting opportunities. State legislatures all across this country as well could be changing again, and will Democrats decide to kind of try to solidify those gains? It's very hard to flip those back.
You know, on your thoughts about this, about the House. Speaker Pelosi will retain control. She's obviously been doing this negotiation that was going nowhere with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and the coronavirus stimulus never came to be before the election. She holds on to control. It depends on what the rest of Washington looks like, how the House deals with it.
Well, I think the key point that strikes me is that, picking up on something Dana was just saying, you see that these suburban districts really respond well to moderate Democrats. And yet, in Trump world, oftentimes when they talk about the House, they talk about the squad, AOC, and that becomes kind of the leading figure, the face of Democrats in the House. But in reality, going back to 2018, the people who boosted the Democratic prospects in the House were these moderate and oftentimes female Democratic candidates recruited by Pelosi and a lot of the fundraisers. And I think that that's what you're seeing now grow. I don't think that the way that we talk about the House is in accord with the reality of the House in terms of the way Pelosi has managed it and in terms of the people who get elected to the House right now on the Democratic side.
Some Republicans are envious of the way she cracks the whip and keeps everybody in line in the House of Representatives as far as votes for Democrats, and she'll continue to do that. Maybe the most consequential race is still too early to call, including Florida, 29 electoral votes. As you take a look at our probability meter, 93%. We have not called it, but 93% for President Trump. Votes that could make or break for President Trump. Electoral votes on the way to 270. We'll be right back.
We're at the movies and we need to silence our phone. Who knows where that button is?
I don't have silent.
Everyone does, right up here.
It happens to all of us. We buy a new home and we turn into our parents. What I do is help new homeowners overcome this.
Was that an adjustable spanner? Good choice, Steve.
Okay, don't forget, you're not assisting him. You hired him. You have nowhere to sit. You have too many. Who else reads books about submarines?
My dad.
Yeah.
Oh, those are...
Progressive can't protect you from becoming your parents, but we can protect your home and auto when you bundle with us.
Look at that.
The workplace doesn't look like this anymore. Now you work from anywhere. Your chairs have changed. Your dress code has changed. And with the biggest distributed workforce in human history, you better hope that your security has changed too. SentinelOne is the only cybersecurity platform purpose-built for the remote workforce. The world has changed. Have you?
With ServPro, our expert cleaning service helps reduce the spread of viral pathogens. Put the certified ServPro Clean Shield in your window and let your customers know that you're committed to a higher standard of clean. For a free quote, visit servpro.com.
A small thing like Kori krill oil can make a big difference for our health. From pure Antarctic waters, krill are an omega-3 force of nature and supports immune, heart, brain, joint, eye, and skin health. The ocean's superior omega.
Keep up to date with the Fox News app. Follow all races across the nation with real-time voter data. America is watching. Download the free Fox News app today.
Joan, your internet service is horribly slow and terribly unreliable.
Yes, Joan. It's time to make a change.
But don't worry. There's Frontier Fiber Optic Internet. It has 25 times faster upload speeds than cable.
Woo! And you can use all your devices at the same time.
And look at weird stuff like me all night long.
Wow, that is really weird.
All night long.
That's right, Joan.
We all agreed.
What?
Woo!
See the light. Switch to fiber. Frontier Fiber Optic Internet.
These days, every health issue can feel like an emergency. But if it's not, instead of a trip to the ER, you can visit Minute Clinic at CVS and save up to 85%.
Good to go.
Minute Clinic, where healthier meets easier.
Listen up, listen up. I can feel your excitement.
I gotta get some air. This is the worst theater experience I've ever had.
So Florida's 29 electoral votes, still too early to award to President Trump or Joe Biden at this hour. Let's check in with Steve Harrigan, who is on the ground there in Lauderhill, Florida. Hi again, Steve.
Martha, they're counting ballots behind me in Broward County, and a couple of storylines really developing here in Florida. One is what's going on in Miami-Dade County. That's, of course, high population, heavily Democratic county. It's a county Hillary Clinton won by 30 points 4 years ago, and something the Democrats need to run up big margins in. However, Biden is leading by just 9 points, so Trump dramatically overperforming in Miami-Dade County. A second storyline is tremendous turnout in some conservative areas. Collier County, where Naples is, 90.1% turnout, and the Villages, conservative bastion, senior citizens in Central Florida, 88% turnout. So it looks like President Trump is so far running up big margins in conservative areas and keeping it close in Miami-Dade, likely through strength with Cuban voters and Hispanic voters. Finally, officials here say things have gone smoothly. The polls opened on time, there have been no security incidents, and the early ballots were processed and counted and posted early. Martha, back to you.
Steve, thank you very much.
Democrats retaining majority of the House, even picking up a few seats tonight, as we just told you. We're also watching the Senate very closely, specifically North Carolina, a race that could be a decider whether Democrats take control of that chamber. Mark Meredith is on the ground at Republican Senator Thom Tillis' headquarters in Mooresville. Mark?
Brett, good evening. Here at Tillis headquarters, they've been watching the numbers very closely, and within the last hour or so, they have seen this race tighten to less than 2 percentage points that they are trailing the former state senator, was Iraq War veteran Cal Cunningham. This is a race that, of course, is not important just only in North Carolina, but everyone that's going to be looking at the balance of power is going to be monitoring what happens here in North Carolina. This was a state that saw record early voting turnout. We saw people that voted the second they could when absentee ballots first went out, as well as October 15th. The day that early voting began in this state. We were at a polling location today, not too far from where we are now, and it was amazing to see that it was so calm because so many of millions of North Carolinians had already taken the chance to vote. I just got done speaking with one of Tillis' supporters as well as advisors, and they, again, were looking at those numbers very closely, remaining somewhat optimistic, but also not certainly popping any champagne corks here at any point. This race is also just so fascinating because it's tied to the presidential race so much. North Carolina, that swing state, 15 13 electoral votes. Brett and Martha, as you know very well, if the president were able to carry this could be good news to bring Tillis over the finish line. However, of course, if Joe Biden ends up catching the state, this could also be a big boost for the Democratic Senate candidate. There's also a governor's race here in this state that we're watching. The Democratic governor doing very well. This has been a big referendum on him when it came to the state's COVID restrictions, because in this state, compared to other states like South Carolina, Georgia, you still see several different restrictions in place for businesses. And while you have plenty of Republicans that are saying they want to see the state reopen, the governor taking a much more cautious approach. And it's been curious to see whether or not that was going to be what voters were focused on the most here, not just where we are in this part of North Carolina, but throughout the entire state. At Tillis headquarters, it may look like there's nobody right here behind me, but there are plenty of people in this room. Everyone is wearing the masks, not just the media, but also Tillis' supporters, an indication that they're taking things seriously, not only with just COVID, but with how the state sees their operation here. Brett and Martha?
All right, Mark, thank you. Just pointing out, we've already called the House for control to the Democrats, but interesting races along the way. Madison Cawthorn will win in North Carolina. That is Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff's seat. He had a bumpy road there in the campaign. He will become the youngest member of Congress.
He's paralyzed from the waist down. People might remember him from the Republican National Convention, standing up on the stage during that, but he ran into some controversy along the way and secured that seat. Ronnie Jackson, also of note in Texas, not a huge surprise win, but you may know that he was the president's doctor at the White House at one point, and Ronnie Jackson will now also be a member of Congress.
So through the night, we'll pepper some of those interesting races, even though control will stay with the Democrats.
So let's get some analysis from Molly Hemingway, who is joining us now, senior editor at The Federalist, and Byron York, Washington Examiner correspondent. Both are Fox News contributors. Great to have both of you with us this evening. Molly, your observations on the evening so far?
Well, we know a little bit about a lot of states. It would be nice to know a lot more about a few states that are out there. But one of the things that is definitely an emerging story is about the closing of the racial gap. There's usually a pretty big racial gap in voting where minorities strongly favor Democratic candidates. And Donald Trump obviously is doing very well in Florida on the strength of not just Cuban voters, but also Venezuelan and Colombian and other minority voters. And there's starting to be an indication that this is happening in other states as well. You know, in Texas, Joe Biden is underperforming, in Ohio and Georgia, in these minority communities. It is really stunning that it is Donald Trump, someone that the media have painted as, you know, a racist racial demagogue, who is managing this transformation of the Republican Party toward a more multiracial working class party. And regardless of what the eventual outcome is tonight, that's something that Republican strategists have to be thinking long and hard about, that the way that Donald Trump has been able to get more outreach and get more buy-in from minority voters has been through this conservative populism that he advocates. It's a really interesting thing that we know thus far as we wait to learn more.
You know, Byron, Republicans, Trump supporters say not only was he running against Joe Biden, but he was running against the mainstream media over 3+ years of kind of really battling back and forth. Your thoughts about this race, where it stands, and kind of that framework?
Yeah. Well, you know, I spent the last week of the race in Pennsylvania talking to a lot of Republicans who all strongly believed that there was something they called the hidden Trump vote, that there were people out there who intended to vote for Trump, but who did not tell not only pollsters, and that's where the media comes in, because they associated all pollsters with the media and they did not trust them, but some of them also didn't tell their friends or their coworkers or even their family. And I talked to some pollsters who were working for the larger Trump effort, and they believed it was a 2, maybe 3 percentage points. Maybe that's what we're seeing in Florida right now. On the other hand, not sure you can make that case in Georgia and North Carolina right now, but clearly the level of hostility and distrust toward the media among Trump supporters is just off the scale.
Byron, just staying with you for a moment, when you look at what Molly was discussing, you know, we see in a number of states the president coming in the 30% range with Latino voters in places where there's a large presence of those voters. Do you agree with Molly that we're seeing, you know, sort of an attraction to President Trump from those voters that we haven't seen in the past?
Yeah, that's a potentially huge development. Remember, after the 2012 presidential election, Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama. The RNC, the Republican National Committee, did this huge study. They called it the autopsy. And the only conclusion they came to was that Republicans had to do more to attract Hispanic voters. And if President Trump is in fact attracting more minority voters, black and Hispanic and other minority voters, I mean, that's a very, very big deal for him. It's kind of ironic that some of the people who were involved in the RNC study opposed President Trump very, very strongly. But nonetheless, this is something the Republican Party has been trying to do for a long time.
And in addition to all of that, Molly, COVID is basically on this ballot as well.
Well, I think that is another issue that has been a very important thing for the Biden campaign to push, and also many people in the media. I think it is interesting that you were just talking about the feeling that Trump is running not just against Joe Biden, but the media. There were so many different ways that the media assisted the Joe Biden campaign throughout his entire campaign once he won the nomination. Prior to winning the nomination, they weren't so sure, but then they all got on board. Whether that was hiding negative stories about Joe Biden, hiding positive stories about President Donald Trump, hiding successes or whatnot, elevating the campaign themes that the Biden campaign wanted, or really an overemphasis on polls. We know enough right now to know that there has been too much emphasis on polling as opposed to the larger issues. Florida was supposed to be a win for Biden. Some people had it a strong win for Biden. It is not going to be, and that is interesting. And if we could have covered more about how the Democrats' left-leaning push toward, some of these socialist messages, how that didn't resonate with minority voters and other people, that would be an important thing for us to know, that if we rely too much on polling, we miss some of these stories that we could find out by talking more to the people who will be voting.
Last thing, turning to the Senate, Byron, we've got the race in Michigan, John James versus incumbent Gary Peters. That seems like it's a very tight race, and there was a lot of prospect for John James. And as you look at it here, again, this is only 19 precincts in Michigan, but how the president does in Michigan will affect this race. Going in, James was outperforming the president in some polls by a couple of points.
I think you're going to see in some other states the Senate candidate outperforming the president. That one would be a very big deal. We all assumed, although it hasn't been called, that there would be a Republican pickup in Alabama, where Doug Jones would lose his seat there. In Michigan, you have a Republican challenging an incumbent Democrat. So Republicans, the way they had looked at this race is they got 53 right now. They pick up one with Alabama, and then they start subtracting. And Cory Gardner has already lost tonight. Michigan could be a huge, huge factor in Republicans keeping the Senate.
Molly, let's take a look at the South Carolina Senate race as well. Lindsey Graham versus Jamie Harrison. This is obviously a race that's gotten a ton of attention, millions of dollars poured into this race, and this is how it shapes up right now. Also pointing out that we're just at 29% of the count in there, 54% for Graham, 43% for Harrison.
Yes, this was a race where, again, you had some early polls showing that Jamie Harrison was really strongly contending with Lindsey Graham. A lot of savvy South Carolinian watchers said that wasn't actually true, that these Quinnipiac polls were quite wrong. And I think tonight you will see evidence of that. However, those polls were very important for getting money to pour into that state. That race saw so much money raised to defeat Lindsey Graham. I think he'll probably do fine. But also, I just want to say it's a good thing to remind people that a lot of these results that we're seeing when states first close and you're starting to get results are those early votes. And it's worth remembering that the Democratic strategy was to get as many people early voting as possible. And so I think sometimes people are surprised when they see a race flipping so much from strong Democratic support initially as the early votes are returned into the later results. And part of that is a reflection of slightly different practices in how the Democratic Party voters and the Republican Party voters go about things.
Yeah. Molly and Byron, thank you so much. Very interesting. Speaking about flipping, our casino owner here in studio, Britt Hume, follows the betting odds, and you're saying the betting odds have just flipped?
The betting odds have flipped completely. You may recall that they were sitting about 64, 65 for Biden, and they went down to 59. Now they've completely flipped. 64.8% Trump, 34.7% Biden. Now, this is shades of 4 years ago when that race turned around, something like this time in the evening, the betting odds led the way. Now, look, they're just betting odds. They're not votes. They're not electoral votes, certainly, but they're interesting. Something's going on. I mean, I'm hearing from various corners that North Carolina is looking increasingly good for Trump, that Ohio's looking good for Trump, that he's certainly got Florida. So Pennsylvania, here we come.
Yeah, wow. Harrisburg is really lovely this time of year.
Can I just say that, in fact, nothing surprising has happened tonight. In fact, each team has held the states they were expected to win. They say in a basketball series or a World Series that it really doesn't start until the visiting team wins on the others on the home field. Nobody has lost a home field. I mean, if this night continues the way it is, if Trump is able to hold on to Florida and Georgia and North Carolina, it's going to end up coming down to exactly the states that we thought it was.
I will just point out that it was this time 4 years ago where I sat next to you and you turned to me and said, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you should get your head around the possibility that Donald Trump could be the 45th president of the United States.
Yes, I did. I'm not going to say that yet tonight because there hasn't been that kind of a change. But in other words, at this point, even if the president were to hold North Carolina and Georgia, it still makes Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the key states, and whoever wins those states wins the presidency.
Yeah, as I said before, when you do that what-if board, it's filling in pretty much the way you would fill in all of these early states, or exactly how you would fill in all these early states. And the states that will decide this, we don't know yet, are still in the mix. So there's a lot to lay out here, which is why we are going to speak to our decision desk after this when we come back, and Chris Stirewalt will weigh in.
Look, they're
we look
working.
forward to seeing him. They are deciding things just all the time in there.
It's a lot of decision-making there. Meantime, we didn't take it live. I think it is. Do they move? Are they living? Can we take a pulse in there? Senator Mitch McConnell, Majority Leader now, gave an acceptance speech of winning in Kentucky. We'll give you a piece of that as we go to break.
Grateful to live in a democratic republic where the people choose our representatives. Grateful to be citizens of the greatest nation in history. And Kentucky, I'm humbled and grateful that you've rehired me to keep fighting for your families and serving our Commonwealth for the next 6 years.
At home with Robert, retired burglar and family man.
Setting up Simply Safe is so easy. You could do it blindfolded. But I wouldn't recommend it. Anyone can do it in less than 30 minutes.
Welcome to Simply Safe.
No tools or wiring needed, and voice prompts guide you.
Motion sensor detected.
Well, that was easy.
Your house brought you together. Like, really together. And although together is great, together with more space is better. With Rocket Mortgage, you get personalized loan options, closing costs, and tax estimates, all in real time. So when you need to know what it takes for a home to fit your budget and your family, Rocket can.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now to give you deep discounts, not just on my pillows, but also my mattress topper, sheets, and so much more. For example, you can get body pillows regularly $89.99, only $29.99 with your promo code. With our 60-day money-back guarantee, you have nothing to lose. Sleep well, America!
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
You may know Mount Rushmore, but that's only the beginning of South Dakota's beauty.
Mountain carvings and breathtaking landscapes are just some of what's waiting to be discovered. When the time is right for you, our great places are open for adventure. I'm Governor Kristi Noem. Now more than ever, those great places can bring us together. And I can promise you, it'll be a vacation to remember. To learn how to explore South Dakota safely, visit our website.
When you can't watch, listen. Get the latest news, business, and news headlines on SiriusXM. Anytime, anywhere. Fox News Audio on SiriusXM. America is listening.
All right, welcome back, everybody. As we await calls from the battlegrounds, we've been watching all campaign season long. We're going to check in with our decision desk, crunching those numbers for us tonight. But we begin with our politics editor, Supreme, Chris Stirewalt, standing by. Chris, you've been watching.
You moved in there, right?
Yeah, no, we've got pulses. It's all working.
Oh, good.
Dana Perino sent us a bunch of candy, so everybody's jacked. This is what Jack looks like in the Nerdquarium.
All right, we are going to grill you here. Here's the grilling. We're going to start in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which we made a call very early on that it was going to Biden. We have the yellow check mark right there. There are a couple other organizations that have pulled back that call based on what they're seeing. And obviously, we're looking at the vote totals right now at 1.2 to 963. So where are we on Virginia?
Well, let me put it to you this way. If the projections that these others you speak of were to hold true, the incumbent senator in Virginia, Mark Warner, would lose by like 20 points. So for Republicans who are excited about Virginia or Democrats who may be despairing, this is a reflection of what we've been talking about all along. There are tons and tons and tons of votes out that have not yet been counted. We have a high expected count for votes in Virginia, and our call will hold. We feel very confident.
Because it's 47% precincts in. So it's just confusing for people who look at it on the screen and they say a yellow mark, but wait, it's 55-43. How can they do that? Explain how exactly you can do that.
Because thanks to the Fox News voter analysis, we have all of these completed interviews with all of these Americans. People who voted early, people who voted in person early, people who mailed in, people who voted on the day of. So once we can match that up with the vote that's coming in, we know how good our surveys were. We know how good of a job we did, along with our partners at the Associated Press and the University of Chicago National Opinion Research Center. We can see, how did it cook up, right? Is the turkey done? And the turkey's done in Virginia.
You're sure?
Yep.
Okay, if it's not, you're coming back.
Yeah, you're coming back.
I'm happy. I'm happy as a West Virginian. I'm always happy to come back and talk smack on Virginia.
Okay. Well, let's go to Florida, right?
Yep, let's go to Florida.
What do you think? Florida, it's 93% in our probability meter. Let's call it.
Well, if a probability meter was a decision desk, what would we do? You'd just get rid of us, and Dana would save all that money on candy.
Now it's 95%, by the way.
The president is leading in Florida. It's not unreasonable for his campaign to be optimistic about Florida, but we would also remember that Florida is a land of alligators when it comes to calling races. And there's just no reason for us right now to take a chance on calling Florida, where there is still a considerable amount of vote out, and we're not quite sure given the high numbers of early votes. So we're just not quite there yet.
What about this thing about the absentee ballots requested in different states, Florida, North Carolina, and the ones that came back received? We know that there's a percentage every year, as Karl Rove talked about, that they just don't vote. It's usually 5-8% that don't get returned. But when you're talking a big number, like hundreds of thousands of absentee ballots that have not come back.
Well, one of the things that makes it challenging for everybody, whether you're watching at home, whether you're on a campaign, whether you're a forecaster, whatever, when you turn up the volume on early and absentee votes by 50%, right? When you have this massive increase in all of these votes, it's going to make these numbers screwy, right? It's going to make things look different. What we do mostly in our work is compare this year to that year. This year to that year. How does it look now versus how did it look then? Because there are incremental changes in demography and incremental changes in turnout. This is one of the most significant changes in the way we conduct elections in our lifetimes, to go from basically 40% votes early and absentee to 60% in early and absentee. And if that's the kind of change you're looking at, you're going to see huge numbers of weird stuff if you compare it to 2016.
By the way,
so don't worry about it.
The sizes of Donald Trump and Joe Biden, accurate.
Yes, they're correct.
They are actually that to scale.
It was nice of them to come and stand on either side of the map with us tonight as we figure all this out.
Let's bring in Bill Hemmer to continue the grilling. Bill Hemmer, you got Chris Stirewalt.
I think Chris is better in the bow tie, but I still like him nonetheless. Chris, good evening to you. I will tell you at the moment, this is Ohio for our viewers at home, because the last time we talked, Donald Trump was trailing. Now he's taken a lead in the state of Ohio. He won it by about 7.5 points from 4 years ago. Last time we talked North Carolina, I mentioned it was getting tighter and tighter. Look where the percentages are right now, 0.4%. A raw total of about 20,000 votes between Biden and Trump. Chris, are you able to tell where the outstanding vote is in North Carolina right now?
So because of, again, this mail vote phenomenon, we're not able to say from whence all of these outstanding ballots have come. But I can say this, we've got to be focused on our probabilities here instead of just the raw vote. And North Carolina is a key state. It is hard to get the president home without North Carolina. It's possible. But it is a key state, and it is one of the ones we're watching the most closely.
Of the remaining 14%, we can't say where it's coming from. But I can tell you these are 3 rural counties right here that are still in gray. I was clicking in there a moment ago. There's not a ton of votes out there, but all 3 of those counties Donald Trump won in 2016. So the margin could change. But when you're talking about 20,000, you want to see it? Here we go. Go back to 2016. This is Caswell County, North Carolina. President beat Hillary Clinton by about 1,000 votes in 2016. What was the other one? Over here in Franklin County, President knocked off Hillary Clinton there by about 4,000 votes. So you got 5,000 votes right there, Chris, and we'll see how that comes in. One more state I want to point out, guys, because the map is starting to expand. Come back to 2020 here. Chris, this is Michigan with 20% of the vote in. You see the numbers tick there, real time again. This is Detroit down here. This is Grand Rapids out here where the president was the other day. Wayne County, Michigan has a ton of votes in that state, and we're just cracking the surface right now for what Detroit could bring in for Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton clocked in at 500,000 votes in 2016. So we're starting to see a little bit of expansion in the map as we move away from some of the races we were watching earlier today. Florida right now, again, about 3.5 points, 9% of the vote out. I'll come up to Georgia and show you what we're getting here now. Half the vote is in Georgia. Chris, I don't know what you see in the Peach State, but Donald Trump right now with a 14-point lead. Fulton County is critical. A lot of votes there. I don't know what the holdup is in Atlanta, Chris.
It's the busted pipe.
Yeah, well, well, if that's the case, they better find a plug pretty soon because the votes are scarce at the moment. What do you see there, Chris?
So look, we're accustomed, whether you're talking about Georgia or whether you're talking about Michigan or any state that is, like America, a couple of blue dots in a big red ocean. It takes a lot longer to get all those votes in the densely populated urban areas in. And this is the rough math of every presidential election and in every swing state, because basically it's the city mice versus the country mice each time. This election is no different in that way, even if you add in the complexity of having the mail vote and the early vote. The truth is it's so much more densely populated in those cities. It just takes longer to get through in those counties.
Let me interrupt here. Is Joe Biden outperforming where we had him going in, or is Donald Trump outperforming?
I think it's too early to know that. I think Chris would agree with me in some of these critical states.
I think so far, how did Brother Wallace put it? He said that nobody had won a game on the road on the opposing team's home field yet. I think that's true so far. And we have not had an event take place yet that says that there's not been some cataclysm for either campaign yet. But as you guys point out, the clock is really running. And the map is expanding quickly, and a lot more electoral votes are on the table now, and here we go.
I would just say, these are the blue dots in Ohio from 2000. This makes your point, Chris, right? This is Cincinnati, Hamilton County. This is Columbus, Franklin County. This is Cuyahoga, Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, it doesn't repeat itself all over the country, but that's a pretty good marker. Again, I'm showing you numbers from 4 years ago, but Michigan's quite similar. Here are the votes down here for Democrats, right? I mean, southeastern corner, Wayne County and Detroit. Pennsylvania, same year, same story. This is Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, and this is Philadelphia over here in the surrounding counties, the collar counties, so to speak.
60% of Democratic votes in Pennsylvania come from 5 counties, I believe. So that's really what this is about. It's about urban density versus spread out across the country. We've all seen the presidential map where you can walk from coast to coast on red counties, but it's figuring out how those concentrated votes are going to go. We can count on Donald Trump winning rural America, and probably in some cases by a substantially wider margin than he did before. But it's those cities that we're watching for right now.
6 million votes, Martha. 6 million votes from 2016. You're about 1.2, 1.1 now. 19% of the vote in Pennsylvania, Martha. And we'll see Pittsburgh, as we point out, also down here.
Chris, a couple things. You know, when you look at, we've talked so much about the 5% undecided voter. And, you know, when I go through these states, it adds up that most people, 70 to 80%, basically said they've known all along who they were going to vote for. And in a place like Ohio, they're pretty evenly split. But the 5%, the 3%, whatever it is, who were undecided, what have we learned tonight so far about which way they're breaking?
Well, and don't forget, a lot of those undecided voters, or a substantial portion of those undecided voters, didn't vote, right? If you're undecided late enough, you may just say, I can't do it. I can't pull the trigger for either one of these guys. And so a lot of them will do that. We can't dispositively say nationally in which way the undecideds broke, but we know that they didn't break for Trump the way they did when he was running as effectively a challenger 4 years ago, which has been his sort of the difficulty throughout for him, which is when he was an unknown commodity 4 years ago, you had a huge number of undecided voters with an open seat, and they broke substantially for Trump at the end and took him over. There was not that kind of effect this time, and instead, as you point out, we've been living in this, it's been a Groundhog Day election. We've been living in basically the same construct of this race from day one.
Sorry, just one more thing. You know, what we've seen, the barnstorming over the past several days, and we saw the polls moving a little bit, and some of them going a little bit in Trump's direction. So are we to believe that that had an impact, that it drove out more of the base vote for him in some of these places, or are these numbers telling us that it didn't?
Well, we know that Donald Trump's base is Donald Trump's base, and they're fired up for him. They will vote. They will stand out in the freezing cold to go to a rally. They will do anything. So turning up his base wasn't really a big problem for him. The question is, were they counter-motivators for Democrats in those urban areas who see Trump on television 5 times a day and think about the coronavirus spread factor and that stuff, and that they get fired up to go vote too?
We're going to make some calls. You're not even in with the decision desk, but I want to ask you one more thing. Trump's biggest vulnerability, as you see it right now on this map, Biden's biggest vulnerability, as you see it right now on this map.
Just think of the Mason-Dixon line. Anything south of the Mason-Dixon line, that south of the border of Pennsylvania, that Joe Biden wins is big trouble for Donald Trump. And conversely, any contested state north of the Mason-Dixon line that Trump can win is real good news for him among the contested states. And we've got a bunch clustered right now that we're ready. It sounds like you know more than I do, but we got a lot of popcorn ready to pop.
Oh. And we're watching you on Virginia. So I just want to put you on notice.
Oh, yeah.
We're watching.
He's got all your chips on that.
Thank you, Chris.
You bet.
So the Fox News decision desk, minus Chris Stirewalt for just a minute, has made some decisions that we want to share with you. President Trump will defeat former Vice President Joe Biden in the state of South Carolina tonight decisively.
And a big one, Fox News can also project that Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina will win re-election by defeating Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison, who managed to throw a scare into Graham, a big one, during a hard-fought campaign. Lindsey Graham will not say his website on any more interviews. He has managed to hold off and will win in South Carolina. And that is a big thing for the Republicans, Chris Wallace, because Lindsey Graham, he was threatened. They thought that Harrison could really take him out.
Yeah. And Harris raised an enormous amount of money, tens of millions of dollars, a real money machine pouring in there. But that was never a toss-up, and that was never leaning Democratic. It was, he got a scare, and he had to campaign probably harder than he thought he was going to have to. Yeah. But I think this was kind of what people in the end thought was going to happen.
You know, I just want to pop in there and say I think this was about money. It was $100 million that he was able to raise.
That's
a Democrat. It's unbelievable. And similarly, you think about what happened in Kentucky. Yeah. You know, again, just a boatload of money from the Democrats. And what do you see in both cases? They were going after Republican senators that they saw as too close to Donald Trump.
But you wonder if the Senate Judiciary Chairman changed his fate when he ran that Amy Coney Barrett hearing in the last final days after Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
He certainly felt that it helped him in the end there. So the polls will be closing in 4 more states on the other side of this break. Chief among them, the state of Iowa, which has been very interesting to watch in this cycle. The president has surged there in recent days in the Des Moines Register poll. We're going to have all the latest from the battlegrounds that hold the keys to 2020 when we come back.
It's getting good.
I'd like to tell you about my great-grandmother.
My grandma.
My cousin.
My great-great-grandmother. She was all of 4 feet 11, but very tenacious.
Very independent woman. Driven, passionate. Embodied grit, perseverance.
She marched.
She wrote. She demanded. She was proud to pass on legacy of civic-mindedness to her descendants. I'm very proud to carry on her story. Her story. Find their stories.
Make them count.
At Ancestry.
How can we find the best climate solutions? We look for a light, one bright enough to inspire us all to work together. Right now, America's natural gas and oil companies continue to lower emissions worldwide, all while fulfilling essential energy needs. Together, we can keep the U.S. the world leader in reducing emissions. See how American innovation lights the way at energyforprogress.org.
These are real people, not actors, who've got their eczema under control. With less eczema, you can show more skin. So roll up those sleeves and help heal your skin from within with Dupixent. Dupixent is the first treatment of its kind that continuously treats moderate to severe eczema or atopic dermatitis, even between flare-ups. Dupixent is a biologic and not a cream or steroid. Many people taking Dupixent saw clear or almost clear skin and had significantly less itch. Don't use if you're allergic to Dupixent. Serious allergic reactions can occur, including anaphylaxis, which is severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems, such as eye pain or vision changes, or a parasitic infection. If you take asthma medicines, don't change or stop them without talking to your doctor. So help heal your skin from within and talk to your eczema specialist about Dupixent. If your financial situation has changed, we may be able to help.
To our coverage, election 2020, and we have a lot of states in play right now. We have a lot of things cooking, a lot of raw vote total that's coming in addition to our voter analysis. And the next polls will close in just a matter of seconds. And when they do, we will make some more calls. It's starting to get where anything can pop at any moment.
Yep. These Senate races are coming in quickly as well. As we said, Senator Graham hangs on to his seat. We're watching the Tillis race in North Carolina closely as well as we count down to the next race calls.
It is 10 o'clock here in New York City. Polls have just closed in another 4 states. Let's start with Iowa, where President Trump is locked in a close race with former Vice President Joe Biden. According to our decision desk, it's too early to project a winner in Iowa. The other state we're watching very closely at this hour is Nevada, where our vote analysis shows Biden ahead of Trump at the moment, although we'll need to analyze a lot more data from Nevada before making a call there.
Meanwhile, President Trump is ahead of the former vice president in a pair of western states. The first is Utah, home to Republican Senator Mitt Romney, and a frequent Trump critic, as we well know. And the other is Montana, a traditional Republican stronghold. Our decision desk still not quite ready to declare winners in either of those states yet tonight.
So if we look at our electoral map, where it stands right now and our lovely standing candidates, it is 129 to 109. Remember that 270 is the magic number to win the presidency. And you see those yellow states. Obviously, those have closed, but we have not called them yet, and that is where this race is really being battled. We have North Carolina. We have Florida that we haven't called yet, although Donald Trump has a big lead now in Florida.
Yeah, and as these results continue to come in tonight, let's bring in Tucker Carlson once again, host of Tucker Carlson Tonight. Tucker, great to talk to you tonight. Obviously, this is a historic evening, always, when the nation comes together to elect a president. This has been a very hard-fought race, and we still have so much that's undecided. Your thoughts at 10:01 Eastern.
I think Mitt Romney had lost by this point when he ran for president. So there's a lot to learn, of course, and I sincerely don't know what the outcome will be, but I just cannot get over my total surprise at the disconnect between what we're watching on the screen and what has been confidently predicted across the media landscape for months. That there was a very good chance of a blue wave, of a total Biden blowout, of an early night. And I could get much more specific about this, and I think we'll probably spend the next couple of months doing that because it's worth doing. But suffice it to say, and anyone watching and who's consumed any media this year knows that the media, even on the basis of the data we have now, got it really wrong. And they'll claim they didn't because they always do, but they did. And we know that. And why is this a problem? It's a problem because in the end, we know who the president is because the media tell us who the president is. The campaign manager for the Joe Biden effort today sent out a tweet saying, in effect, you know, we will, if announced that Joe Biden won by the media, then, you know, we will consider that a victory. And then they said on background to a bunch of other news organizations, the second the media declared Joe Biden the president, he will begin, in effect, acting like the president. So you can't really overstate the role of the media in adding legitimacy and conveying legitimacy to the winner. We're not just observers, we're participants, as much as we hate to admit it. So given all of that, it really matters whether or not we're credible. And I would say in some very specific ways, we, the media, I participated in it for 30 years, have not been credible. We have lost trust. And that's just, I think that's really bad. And it's something that we need to fix. And the obvious problem is something we said we were going to correct in 2016, which is we don't know anybody who votes for Trump. And so you really got the sense watching everybody that, like, you know, it's kind of embarrassing to support Trump or whatever. And that's why the rallies were such a huge shock to a lot of people in the last week. All these people unapologetically saying, I love Donald Trump. And it's like, I've never met anybody who says something. Who are these people? We have a huge problem in our business with being cut off from the country we cover. And I would say a lot of power centers in this country have that problem, but we have it in the media, and I really sincerely hope we fix it because we're moving toward like zero credibility, and that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Molly Hemingway earlier in the show about the president and his supporters feeling like he was not running only against Joe Biden, but was running against a lot of the media as well. He couldn't get on some of those rallies. We aired rallies from Democrats and the president throughout this process, but they always felt like it was an uphill battle. He still has a path to 270 tonight, and as Britt mentions every few minutes, the betting odds are increasing for President Trump.
Well, they are, and I have to say, because I think I'm bitter about it, and it's worth being bitter about. We found out in the final days of this campaign that members of the president's family were under an active FBI investigation into business deals that we, I think, pretty conclusively proved he knew about, parts of which he approved of. Tony Bobulinski was a direct participant in those conversations with the former vice president. I'm not accusing him of a crime. I'm merely saying he was involved. And that story was utterly squelched. Bobulinski's name wasn't mentioned on any other channel apart from Fox News. It was completely ignored on purpose, not because it wasn't newsworthy. It most certainly was newsworthy, but because they were taking a partisan position on behalf of a presidential candidate. Now, it's not just a matter of being annoyed that the media are liberal or whatever. They've always been liberal. That's fine. I'm not mad about that. I accept it as reality. Why it's scary is that on a night like tonight, the whole country, 350 million of us, will only know who the president is when the media tell us. And so it's very important for the media to behave in ways that allow us to trust them. It's important for the future of the country, I think.
Tucker, as always, thank you. It's
thank you.
Great to have your perspective on election night. We've got our panel looking deep into these numbers. Karl Rove, Katie Pavlich down in Brazil. Donald, let me start with you. There are some of these calls that we haven't made yet, but seem to be going a little bit more towards Donald Trump's way. What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, we're looking at states that Donald Trump carried in 2016, either by a percentage point or, you know, less than 4%. So I'm not surprised at where the numbers are now. More data needs to come in. More numbers need to come in. What I'm seeing right now, still, again, I'm an optimist. I still believe that there's a path for Joe Biden.
Wait. You still believe there's a path? There were like 7 paths when we started. You say that there's a path?
No, I haven't changed my prediction. I still believe that Joe Biden has several paths. Look, we haven't called Georgia. We haven't called North Carolina. Things are trending in Donald Trump's direction in Florida. Ohio is still up. Pennsylvania has not come in. Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota, Texas, Wisconsin. So the night is still young. So I'm not ready to light a cigar or pop open a good bottle of champagne because there's a lot of votes that are still outstanding.
Yeah, we've got states all across the bottom of your screen right now that are too early to call, all of which are very important states in this. Carl, I want to ask you about this from Philadelphia. There's a report from Politico that says that Philadelphia officials say that they will not be reporting any more mail ballots tonight. About 76,000 have been tallied so far out of 350,000 that have been received. Does that surprise you? And, you know, everybody obviously is watching Pennsylvania really closely. We'll probably be watching it for many days to come, it looks like.
Well, first of all, secure the ballots. Let's make certain that's done. I am a little surprised because, you know, you'd think they'd want to get this done. And we know that Pennsylvania is going to it's going to be Friday before they're able to sort of cut it off. This is a state that was supposed to have all the mail-in ballots received by tonight. By close of business, but instead they used some administrative measures and a court decision to move it till Friday. So I'd keep the people at it, but they may just say our progress is such, give them the benefit of the doubt. Our progress is such that we don't need to work 24 hours a day. We can get this thing done in the next day or two. And certainly before the deadline of Friday. But it's better that we have these contests settled sooner rather than later, even if it is an unofficial count and has to be subsequently certified by the Secretary of State.
Carl, while we have you, where are you on Texas? Are you bullish on a Trump Texas?
Texas, our Texas, all hail the mighty state. Of course, it's going to be red. John Cornyn.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. The one in the musical interlude here. Can I say something about North Carolina?
Wait. So you're done with Texas? You think it's GOP?
Yes. It's just a little ditty.
The Republicans will carry it on the presidential level. I'm looking at the numbers. Senator Cornyn is running like 6 points ahead of his Democratic challenger, despite the fact that something like $50 million is spent in the last 6 weeks, including $28 million by Silicon Valley Tycoon in the last week. You know, and not only that, but the Republicans are going to keep the State House of Representatives, which, as I said earlier, was just a gigantic amount of money thrown on Texas. But we're going to hold on to that as well.
And what were you going to say?
Well, let me say something about North Carolina. This is why election nights are so interesting, because you may have just noticed that Trump's margin has grown a little bit. And not only that, but Tom Tillis is now leading in the Senate race. And what's interesting to me is it's a handful of counties. Mecklenburg, which is Charlotte, and Wake, which is Raleigh, and Greensboro, which is surprisingly enough Greensboro, they're sort of mostly all in. And what was happening is that a handful of counties, Union and Johnston were the biggest ones, and then there are Franklin, Granville, and Caswell, smaller counties. They weren't reporting votes. Union County, which is just to the east of Charlotte, and Johnston, which is just to the east of Wake, Johnston started to come in and flipped it, because these counties, Union County went last time around 81-19 Republican. Johnston County went 64-32 Republican, and there are about 200,000 votes there. And just as one of those counties comes in, North Carolina is so close that it flipped it from being from a Biden lead to a Trump lead, and from a Cunningham lead to a Tillis lead. And we got one other big county, and then 3 smaller counties to come in. Now there's some stuff in Charlotte and stuff in Raleigh. It's yet to come in, but it's like a small percentage of the vote. This is going to be tight as a tick, and we're going to literally be waiting here for all these little places. There's a county, Perkins, 63-39 for, 34 in 2016, and over on the Atlantic Ocean, small county, we haven't heard anything from that county. So. The big city versus the little counties and a couple of mid-sized counties, it's going to be a long night.
Hello, Kirkland.
Trump won these states in 2016, small margin, and they're, as Carl just mentioned, they're very close.
Katie, do you know anybody in Kirkland?
That you can call.
Okay. What do you think?
I apologize. I don't know anybody. Yeah, Carl's going to give me the phone number to call.
Incidentally, I got some criticism for the ding on my phone. I'm sorry. It actually was my
took care of the angel landing for you, Brett.
I got an email from a friend who said that ding on air made the whole country just check their phones. Nice work.
Well, the singing we could do without, too. All right, Katie, give us your thought.
I think President Trump's still in really good shape. Joe Biden is the side of the ticket here that has been trying to explain away losing states like Florida. Georgia, obviously, still in play. We may not have the results now from Fulton County as a result of the water main break for a couple of days, according to election officials there. But in terms of Philadelphia, not reporting any more absentee ballots tonight, and that may be taking a couple of days. The first explainer for that could be that, well, because they had this court ruling that allows absentee ballots to be stamped in the mail past Election Day, they have some breathing room there in terms of getting them all counted and tallied up in the vote. However, there's been this massive controversy with the Attorney General there, who said earlier in the week, just yesterday, that as long as all of the votes are counted, President Trump will lose when he doesn't know the actual outcome of that race yet. And so it begs the question about, what the actual reason is behind them not finishing out the electoral votes tonight in terms of getting the absentee ballots counted and ready to go for the next couple of days.
Yeah, great point. Let's go to Bill Hemmer, who is at the Billboard.
Hey, guys. Good evening to you.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah,
what have you got up there? After you look at that, I'd love to look at Arizona and get your thoughts on that.
Sure will.
Where are we starting here?
Guys, I'm going to give you a spin around here, okay? Because there is a lot of action in these battleground states right now. What the Trump campaign is saying that their Election Day vote is now coming home. They're also suggesting in northeastern PA that blue-collar workers are going for President Trump. Well, let's see if that's the case. 28% of the vote in right now, a small lead for President Trump over Joe Biden. We've been saying it for a while now. Pennsylvania is not going to be able to be called tonight. Is that the case? We believe that to be the case. But look on up here. This is Lackawanna County. Still some votes to be had out there. This is Scranton, PA. This is where Joe Biden lived until the age of 9, until he moved to Delaware in 2016. For comparison's sake, well over 100,000 votes in Lackawanna. So we got a little bit of ways to go here, just about half the vote in that county. So we'll see whether or not the Trump team thinks that blue-collar vote in northeastern PA is coming their way. A couple more things I want to show you guys. This is North Carolina now. This is 0.6% in favor of Donald Trump. We saw it flip just about 10 minutes ago. Some more votes coming in. Carl talked about this county here. That's Perkins. Just a moment ago, it clicked in. The president has about a 2,500 vote lead in this far northeastern rural county in North Carolina. So if this stays now with about 10% more the vote in the Tar Heel state, the president's going to pick up 15 electoral votes in North Carolina, which was, by the way, it's what the Trump team said they would do tonight. Now let's go over here to Ohio. We'll see where that stands right now. The lead continues to widen for the president over Joe Biden here. You're up about 5-6 points right now. Remember, 4 years ago, it was about 7.5. So he's starting to hit his margins with 20% of the vote still outstanding. We talked about the map expanding. Well, let's show you how that's happening here. This is Michigan. Been watching this now. You got a third of the vote in right at the moment. A big part of the vote down here in Wayne County, Detroit, is not in yet, so we're going to watch that. Further west in Wisconsin, map grows larger, right? 38% in. The president's slight lead. I would caution you on this only because this is Milwaukee down here, is Green Bay up here. This is Milwaukee County. You've got a lot of votes that have not yet been tallied. Milwaukee tends to run later into the night, so we'll see how this measures up. This is Dane County, by the way. That's where Madison is. That's where the University of Wisconsin is located. You had a ton of votes for Hillary Clinton 4 years ago, so Joe Biden hasn't yet hit that mark. She had 217,000 and 75%, so he's 144. So I would imagine in a liberal county like Dane County, Wisconsin, that there's more votes out there for Democrats to be had. One other thing I think is curious, the Trump team told me a bit earlier tonight that they had about half a dozen counties in Wisconsin that ran out of ballots, and they had to go out and get more. Some of them are right here in the center part of the state, Juneau County. There's not a ton of votes to be had anyway. Nonetheless, though, Wood County, just north of it, they ran out of ballots, apparently, had to gather more. Perhaps they file provisional ballots until they can fill the void for that. The reason I bring that up, you got a 6,000 vote margin at the moment in Wood County alone in Wisconsin. Why does that matter? Just pop out here a moment to 2016. I mean, this is razor tight, right? Talking 23,000, 22,000 votes in Wisconsin. All these votes now matter in 2020 from the rural areas that Donald Trump, he's been going there. He's been campaigning. He's been working hard for Wisconsin. The campaign thinks they've got a shot. I talked with one of the high-ranking members of the campaign a bit earlier today. They had a split opinion, actually. One gentleman thought Pennsylvania was more likely to flip toward Trump. The other thought Wisconsin was. I don't know if either one is right, but they were laying odds a bit earlier today based on what they were seeing from the results tonight. You mentioned Arizona. Martha, let's go check it out, okay? You know, this is Maricopa County. This is Phoenix. You've got about 71% of the vote tally. By the way, it's the first time I've seen it. I think it's the first time you guys have seen it too, right? Joe Biden with a slight lead here now at 54-44. This is Maricopa. This is, look, you win your elections here in Pima County with Tucson and up here in Maricopa. At the moment, 54-44. That's a 10-point edge. Let's see what they did 4 years ago. Donald Trump, pretty impressive, 51-48, so there's more votes to be had there as well. Come back to 2020, and we'll see how much more we get in here in Arizona in a moment. 11 electoral votes. We knew they closed at 9. They would not report until 10 o'clock. It's about 10:17 East Coast time, and they're rolling in, guys.
So in Arizona, like those other states, the early vote we've seen from our voter analysis survey goes 6 out of 10 towards Biden in pretty much every state. But then the vote seems to fill in, as we've seen in these other states.
Yeah, it's the same trend, right, Brett? I mean, the skew is blue, and then it changes throughout the course of the night. I mean, that's been the pattern back here in Ohio. That's been the pattern down here in North Carolina.
And clearly in Florida.
Yeah, Florida. And also, I would suggest at the moment, with a little more than half the vote in, Georgia's shaping up to be the same way.
Yeah, wow. I mean, this whole question
2020 is just like that, isn't it?
Yeah, about whether there's a path through the Sun Belt or through the Rust Belt. You know, we're starting to see that Sun Belt area. That's why I wanted to take a look at Arizona, and I saw that there's a pretty decent gap right now between Martha McSally and Mark Kelly, in favor of Mark Kelly, at least at this point. You've got, I think we have about 71% of the vote in the state in. So one to watch as we get a little bit closer to that one.
All right, Bill, thank you.
Talk you back later.
So the polls are closed in the biggest toss-up states in the race for the White House. We're going to bring you all the latest data from our decision desk as it comes in. Plus, Laura Ingraham is on deck to join us as our Democracy 2020 coverage rolls on after this.
Our retirement plan with Voya gives us confidence.
So we can spend a bit today knowing we're prepared for tomorrow.
Wow. Do you think you overdid it, maybe?
Overdid what?
Well planned, well invested, well protected.
Voya. Be confident to and through retirement.
All OTC pain relievers, including Voltaren, have one thing in common. None are proven stronger or more effective against pain than Salonpas Patch Large. There's surprising power in this patch. Salonpas. Dependable, powerful relief.
Sharing smiles together is a gift. At Aspen Dental, it's easy to gift yourself the smile you deserve. New patients, get started with a comprehensive exam and full set of x-rays with no obligation. And if you don't have insurance, it's free. Plus, get 20% off your treatment plan. Enjoy flexible payment options and savings when it matters most. We're here to make your smile shine bright so you can start the new year feeling all right. Call 1-800-ASPEN-DENTAL 7 days a week or book today at aspendental.com.
Hey, Tony, what you doing?
I'm reviewing some of Tubi's best plays. They got such a deep bench of free movies and television shows. There's always a perfect play.
Tubi. Download now on all your favorite devices.
Joan, your internet service is horribly slow and terribly unreliable.
Yes, Joan. It's time to make a change.
But don't worry. There's Frontier Fiber Optic Internet. It has 25 times faster upload speeds than cable.
Woo! And you can use all your devices at the same time.
And look at weird stuff like me all night long.
Wow, that is really weird.
All night long. That's right, Joan.
We all agreed.
Woo!
See the light. Switch to fiber.
Frontier Fiber Optic Internet.
The conversation you start today could be the first step toward the job you start tomorrow.
Hi guys, it's so great to meet you.
To escape the chopping block, you have to be fast, smart, and confident.
Use the sharp side.
Oh my God.
This is Ultimate Tag. We're back. Holy.
Welcome back. On your screen, a look at where this race stands at this hour in Florida. Take a look there. 91% of the precincts in. Donald Trump, 51.3% to 47.8%. In Georgia, there you go, 56% of the precincts in, and you see Donald Trump. Again, some of that other vote, as we talked about. And then North Carolina, a very close race there in North Carolina, but 91% of the precincts in. Again, all of those too early to call at this hour.
And let's take a look at the overall electoral map as it stands right now. In the race to 270, Joe Biden at 129, President Trump at 109, and you see the percentage there, 48.2 to 50.2 as we stand. 0.3 as we stand this evening. Things are changing by the second at 10:22. So let's get some thoughts tonight from Laura Ingraham, host of the Ingraham Angle, who joins us with her thoughts on how things are looking so far, Laura, at this point in the evening. We've got some information and quite a bit more to come in.
Yeah, well, the in-person votes usually are the last to be counted, except with the mail-in ballots that are going to be rolling in, postmarked today. So we have to keep that in mind. But I think when we look at Florida and focusing on the GOP for a moment, Martha and Brett, the coalition that the Republicans have been able to put together in that state is really something that they should try to replicate as much as possible going forward up and down the East Coast with a strong contingent of seniors, Latinos, young professionals, African Americans. The Republicans have outperformed, it looks like tonight, across all of those categories with higher turnouts than they had in 2016. So there was a lot of talk about how Biden was going to bring all these new voters to the fore, and indeed we'll probably find that he did. But the other story, which I think you're seeing playing out in state after state tonight, is that Trump brought more people into the party and then expanded the base from those blue-collar workers on out. So we'll see what happens as the night goes forward. But to me, Florida is the future for the Republican Party.
You know, Laura, this is just an interesting thing. And you talk about this policies toward China, being tough on China. Right now, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Chinese yuan has started to tank.
I just saw that. And what is that? Yeah.
What does that tell you?
It's very significant because it means, at least so far in the evening, they're looking at the betting odds. And I know you've probably talked about that already tonight.
Britt has.
Yeah, 64% on the overseas betting now lean toward Trump. And the Chinese are watching all of this. And right now, they are indicating to us that they believe the tariffs that Donald Trump put on a whole swath of Chinese goods, they're here to stay for the foreseeable future. And that obviously hurts their currency, at least in the short term. So that's a significant metric, but it's just how they're reading the data that's coming in right now. But I have to say, when we look at the sheer numbers of people who've turned out to vote, we had a very engaged electorate this election season. And there are a lot of people who've said that, you know, Joe Biden made a smart call and running on the pandemic and hanging back and letting Trump, you know, go out there and dominate the stage because people were tired of Trump. I think that was a, you know, really misguided way of looking at things. I think, as you saw after he recovered from COVID, he has been nonstop. And I think a lot of folks, as time went on, began to really respect that he was fighting, in their mind, for every vote that he could get in those swing states. And it was a breakneck pace. Obviously, Joe Biden could not keep up with that or didn't want to keep up with it. And those crowds, which, you know, again, a lot of people didn't want to talk about, they were a metric of energy and excitement that I just did not see replicated on the other side, at least the emotion of it, for whatever that's worth tonight. And I think in the end, the love for the country, the love for the average worker, they're going to say trumped the dislike that the left has for Donald Trump, his tone and tweets and some of his past comments.
Laura, a lot of people have wanted the president, people who support him have wanted him to focus more on the economy and on recovering from coronavirus. He really swung around to that in a stronger way in the final days as he campaigned through the course of these rallies. The NASDAQ futures are up over 3% this evening, and it just reminds me of the discussion that was had in 2016, and I want to keep reiterating, we got a long way to go here in this evening tonight, but it was all doom and gloom that he was going to sort of make all the markets crash, and I think would never ever recover. The stock market would never ever recover.
Yeah, well, it was going to be. Yeah, Martha, you hit the nail on the head. In the spring, it was the Great Depression was coming. It was going to be not just a long, dark winter. It was going to be a long, dark decade. We heard some people saying, was it going to be a decade before we'd recover? How can any incumbent president overcome a depression, a pandemic, and in concern about his tone? That was never possible. And I've got to say, for whatever people think about Donald Trump, the personality, he never gave up on his winning formula of policies, which is America first, enforce the border, tighten the labor market, see wages go up, which you saw $6,000 for the average family income, median family income through the last year. These were significant advances for African Americans, Latinos. Some of that is paying off tonight. I think people are worried that we're going to go into a shutdown next year as they see a lockdown happening across Europe. And I think that lockdown versus liberty dichotomy, I think in the end that ended up helping with women who want their kids back in school. And I think it began to motivate even some younger voters who, maybe were led to believe on social media that Donald Trump was a terrible, awful, rotten person. Yeah. Again, we'll see as the micro-analysis goes forward. We will. But I think a lot of people in Trump country are feeling pretty happy right now.
Yeah, Laura, thank you. I just want to point out 3.6% up on the NASDAQ futures at this point, which is a huge leap. We'll see what happens overnight. Laura, thank you.
Laura, thank you. Let's head back now across the Hudson River. Harris Faulkner live with some voters tonight in beautiful Liberty State Park. Hi again, Harris.
Hello, Brett and Martha. It is time again to hear the voters' voices, and we're going to get some of the grittier issues around this election, some of the things that you were just talking about, Latino, black vote, that sort of thing. Our panel voters back with us now, watching the night unfold along with much of America. Two Joe Biden supporters, Amanda A., Natalie Rojas, and backing President Trump, John L. and Janet P. Natalie, I'm going to start with you because it looks like in Florida, and we can't call anything there yet, Fox News not doing it yet, but how much work do Democrats need to do with the Latino voters? Not a monolithic group, any of us as people of color, we know that, but Biden is missing the mark so much more than even Hillary Clinton.
Like you said, we're not a monolith. There are, Cubans, I'm sure you're familiar with the line of Cubans, usually vote Republican, Puerto Ricans vote for Democrats, and we've actually seen a huge turnout of Puerto Ricans tonight. And I think I think the thing is that people expect demographic change to happen in the general receiving centers for immigrants, so New York, Miami, Los Angeles, that kind of thing. But we actually have a lot of growth in like North Carolina, Alabama, Michigan, those centers that we don't really think about, traditional centers of Latinos. And so I think, there's a lot more to come tonight.
Are you surprised that your candidate has not done as well, though, even as the previous Democrat against Donald Trump, same candidate?
Well, again, we are just trying to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to vote and everybody has an opportunity to have their ballot counted, whether that's tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah. Janet, I want to come to you because we're focused so much on Georgia tonight. Fulton County, a very large black vote there. You obviously are a Trump supporter, haven't always been a Republican, predominantly a Democrat. What do you think that maybe Democrats are missing about that particular voting bloc?
I really think that the Democrats they're probably missing on the things that are most important. When it comes to law and order, the support of our police, some of the policies. I think that they're missing on the finer points of things. That they're not as detailed. Democrats have a tendency to see things in a monolithic way and not realizing that there are many parts of a whole. So I think that is their problem. They're missing the mark on the finer points.
I do want to say that Joe Biden right now, from the Fox News voter analysis, Amanda, does show that black voters are still very strong for Joe Biden. They haven't fully counted Fulton County yet, so we'll see what happens there. But some of these same issues, as a minister, I know that you've been watching just different demographics in your congregation. The coronavirus was something that Joe Biden thought he could really hit home with. As a Biden voter, how do you think he did with that? Did that turn out to be the thing that he could win it with as much as people thought?
I think it's one of the things. You know, I think when we talk about the economy, we can't actually fix the economy without first addressing this global pandemic that we're part of. And that resonates with Democratic voters, of course. Another thing that I really hope we can figure out a table to have a conversation around is all of these interlocking injustices. We can't really talk about racial injustice without talking about climate justice. And we can't talk about climate justice without talking about economic justice and environmental justice. It's all related. And I don't think we're doing a good job on a national level of laying that space for having this conversation that says all of these things are connected. I also really believe that we've got to figure out as a people how to be the people that can be the change in this world. We need to cultivate a prophetic imagination and the moral courage to move this country into a place where all can flourish. Right now, we are very far from that. There are 38 million children in this country who are poor and low income, and that's not the world that any of us want.
You know, John, I'm curious to get your thoughts as a police officer as we go forth. You know, there's still talk of how we're going to deal with the unrest in the streets that had nothing to do with George Floyd or other problems that were going on. They had to do with people who were just angry in the streets, some of them committing crimes. As a cop going forward, what's your view on it all?
Well, you know, I think the woman who just spoke before me, and I apologize for forgetting her name, we do need to come together. We need to figure out a way to come from our corners and work together to get things right. You know, I think the problem that we have on the law enforcement side is the people on the left want to tell us, you know, why we're wrong, why we, you know, why we should vote for Joe Biden, or that we're a bad person if we do it for a bad person, we do that. We need to come together, and both sides need to meet in the middle and try to fix this. Law enforcement is ready. We're here to help serve people and keep our communities safe. And it's the citizens of the cities that suffer the most when this unrest breaks out, because a lot of times it's not them committing these acts of violence.
John, real quickly before we have to go, why do you think that Joe Biden didn't get the backing of many of the police officers that President Trump did? And you yourself, you're a Trump voter, so you probably have a good idea.
Because we don't trust that Joe Biden supports us. When Joe Biden goes on national television and tells us to de-escalate a situation by shooting someone in the leg, it clearly tells us that he could care less about us and has no idea about the job we do.
To the voters' voices, thank you for being with us on Fox News Channel tonight. So good to meet you all. And thanks for voting, the most American thing that we do. Martha Brett, it has just been a pleasure to talk with people, real people, about the issues that matter to them as you guys watch this race unfold. We'll be up all night, it looks like.
It looks like we're a long way away.
Great group. So a look now at where the race stands to 270 at this hour. Long list of crucial battlegrounds, folks, that are still too early to call. We are just getting rolling this evening, so settle in here with us. Plus, another 4 states closing their polls a short time from now. Quick break. We'll be right back.
Sweetheart, do my forearms look bigger?
They look the same.
But I've been spinning faster recently. I think they're getting bigger. Feel them.
Yeah, they kind of feel bigger.
Yeah, cool. Sorry.
Switch to Progressive and you can save hundreds. You know, like the sign says. Do you have any idea how your mattress affects your body and how well you sleep? Is it too hard or too soft, causing you to wake up with sore shoulders, back, or hips? Are you uncomfortable because you're too hot or too cold? Now you can get the total body support you need and the better sleep you want with the new MyPillow mattress topper.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. When I invented my new MyPillow mattress topper, I made it to have everything you'd ever want in a topper. My mattress topper helps give you the support you need, helps relieve your pressure points, and regulates your body temperature for you as an individual. It comes with a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry the cover. It's made in the USA, and I back it with my 60-day money-back guarantee.
MyPillow topper delivers on its promise to give me a better night's sleep.
Call now to get your very own MyPillow mattress topper. Use the promo code and Mike will give you 30% off and 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free. Order now.
I personally guarantee it's going to change your bed into the most comfortable bed you'll ever own.
We believe at New Day USA, we have a noble purpose. We want to be known as America's mortgage company for veterans and active duty service people. Some of them are giving their lives right now today for the freedoms that we have here in this country. So for us at New Day to help those people at this point in time, it's a labor of love, it's a noble service, and that's what we're all about.
The Fox News Decision Desk can now project that President Trump will defeat former Vice President Joe Biden in the state of Utah. Not really a surprise there, but it ticks up into the president's column as we go towards 270. We are watching a lot of states that are kind of on the bubble here, and we're also looking at our voter analysis surveys that talk to about 150,000 Americans around the country.
So let's check in with Shannon Bream, who is here with more analysis of all of that fascinating information that's deep in all these pages. Hi, Shannon.
Hey, Brett and Martha. So let's look at Florida, where it's very tight and it hasn't been called yet. If it does go for President Trump, here is going to be one of the keys why. Seniors are backing him. Now, this comes after concerns that he might be losing them because of the way that he handled the coronavirus pandemic. Also this, Cuban voters are going for Trump, but more broadly, Hispanics as a voting bloc, they're behind Biden. 8 in 10 voters there in Florida say it's important to them that the next president shake up the political system. Now, that includes close to half who say it's very important to them. Those are voters who broke for Trump by more than 10 points. On the other hand, most Florida voters want the next president to look out for people like them, and those voters say that they favor Biden over Trump. 7 in 10 in the Sunshine State, the voters there believe that Donald Trump stands up for what he believes in. Now, those voters broke for the president by an almost 2-to-1 margin. Interestingly enough, though, the angry voters that made up such an important part of Trump's voters 4 years ago, well, they're now in Joe Biden's column by a wide margin. So a lot more numbers to come. That's one of the key states. We'll keep watching them. Back to you guys.
Shannon,
okay, Shannon, thank you
very much.
Stuart Varney, host of Varney & Company on Fox Business Network, joins us now. Stuart, you've been watching this. We talked a little bit about the markets, the futures. We talked a little bit about the Chinese yuan. What are you seeing?
Oh. We've seen a remarkable switch just in the last hour or so. First of all, the betting markets. About 2 hours ago, the betting was favoring Joe Biden to win. Now, the betting market gives Donald Trump a 65% chance of winning. So you've got a real switch there. If you look at the stock market, we're looking at a continuing strong rally. The NASDAQ, for example, that's the home of all those popular big-name technology companies, that is up 3.5%. That is a whopping great big gain for that particular index. Stock prices across the board on the upside as we speak. Look at it on your screen right now. The President Trump seems to be putting in a strong showing, and investors like that. So the gains of the stock market that we saw on Monday and Tuesday, 1,000 points up on the Dow, that is holding. And Brett, I got to tell you, this is very important to ordinary people, if I can put it like that. Investing is no longer the area of just for the rich and the elites. 100 million Americans are now investors in the market through 401ks and IRAs. And they are sitting on some very nice gains brought to them during the Trump rally of the last 4 years. They don't want to see those gains go away. If, for example, you had $100,000 in your 401k 4 years ago, you were doing well. Now you've probably got $140,000 in your 401k, and you want to keep that gain. So what we're seeing at the moment is the market suggesting that Donald Trump will win. The betting market suggesting that Donald Trump will win. It frankly reminds me a lot of 2016, where things turned around in the middle of the night. I think we're seeing that right now.
Yeah, I mean, we do have to pump our brakes because we have a long way to go. Ohio, North Carolina, very tight. Pennsylvania will not be decided tonight because of all of those ballots. So there's still a lot to work out. But you're right. All of those places seem to be reacting to this shift that you're talking about.
And Stuart, there's been obviously such a weight on the market from coronavirus and the shutdowns that we've seen in the UK and in Europe. And that's been one of the things that President Trump has said pretty much everywhere he goes, that he believes that if Joe Biden's elected, we'll find ourselves in another lockdown. Of course, he says that that's not the case, but he wants to deal with the virus first. What's the impact of that?
Well, for the economy to really emerge from the pandemic, you've got to open up the economy. States have to come back on those restrictions that are now imposed. That has always been President Trump's policy. Open up, expand and grow. Joe Biden has taken the other tack. He's being very cautious, prepare and look at health first of all, and therefore he's entertained the idea of more lockdowns. That is not popular with investors. They don't want to see that. They want to see growth and prosperity, and you get that by opening up. And so what you've got now is a stock market that's looking at a very significant gain in the middle of the evening, even though so many races are just far too close to call, and where in Pennsylvania, as Brett's saying, you're probably going to have to wait until the next couple of days to get a result out of there. Nonetheless, investors like what they see and are pushing stock prices higher at this moment. That could all change, of course. That's what happens on the market. But as of now, investors are putting their money into stocks, and stock gains are holding.
Thank you, Stuart.
Stuart,
Great
as
to have you
always,
with us
thank
tonight.
you.
So the Fox News Decision Desk can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden will defeat President Trump in New Hampshire. Let's put that up and see the impact of that on the overall numbers here. Biden 53%, 44% as we take a look at the big picture here. You've got President Trump with 115, Joe Biden with 133. You know, New Hampshire was a state that the president lost by just close to 3,000 votes last time around. And we've talked about this, but there were a number of states that early on the Trump team was looking at as places that they could turn into Trump states, places like New Mexico, Nevada, places like Minnesota and New Hampshire. So this is the first one of those four that we're seeing tonight, and it's clear that Joe Biden is very comfortably holding the lead, even more so than Hillary Clinton did.
And the president made a stop in New Hampshire, at least one. I know the vice president went there as well. We're back with our panel. Britt, what are you seeing right now? What are you feeling right now?
A couple of things. The betting odds had once gotten up as high as 78% for Trump. They dialed back to 60-something now at about 70, so he's still the favorite of people who are betting their money tonight.
But put the caveat on that, because I've had people asking me, what are the Vegas casinos have better pollsters than the Washington types? It's just market money.
It's market money. I mean, that's what this is about. I mean, Stuart made the point. I mean, people are betting their money in stocks, and people in China are worried about the yuan, and the trend is in that direction. Now, look, we got a long way to go tonight.
Yeah.
But at a minimum, I think it's fair to say that a lot of what the pollsters were telling us about how this was going to go, and there were many that had, Trump losing on a bunch of these southern states. And
Florida, +5.
Florida, yeah, exactly. They're off again. And we've been through this before. We all thought, that the pollsters who made those projections in the states 4 years ago and got it so badly wrong would have it figured out by now. Trump may not win, but he certainly made them look bad tonight in a bunch of states, including, as you point out, Florida being one of the main ones.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that seems clear, Dana, is that we talked about the fact that this was either going to be a landslide for Biden, that was the one option that was on the table, or a really tight race, and it's looking like it's shaping up to be the latter.
I think, any idea that there was going to be a blue tidal wave, that is absolutely impossible now, it looks like, and especially because you see North Carolina so close. And if Tillis is able to win his seat there, because think about it, Cal Cunningham, the Democratic challenger, he had a big sex scandal about a month ago on the same day that Tillis comes down with COVID. And what happened? Tillis stepped on the gas in order to campaign. Cunningham really kind of went silent. He didn't want to answer questions or anything. And so it's almost like he sat on that lead and he watched it fade. And to the point about New Hampshire, I have really thought that Trump would be able to win New Hampshire, given that he'd only lost it by 2,700 votes. And there was so much enthusiasm up there for him. But think about what the campaign manager, Bill Stepien, did for President Trump. Takes a look at that and says, that might not work. But where did they focus? Way down in Florida. And you think about Donna Shalala, who was the former Secretary of Health and Human Services, and then she's a congresswoman. She lost her seat tonight, the Democrat. And Maria Salazar, the Republican challenger, is going to pick up that seat. Now, can they replicate that kind of support from Latinos and Cubans from that Miami-Dade area across other places? You know, possibly so. And that could be a big difference maker between when some of these states come down to the wire like they are.
Juan, your thoughts?
Well, you know, I'm curious. I mean, I think the pollsters told us early on we would see what they call blue haze or blue mist or red mist and red haze.
No, red mirage.
As we
Purple haze is
well, you know, it's different haze. But
sounds like a stripper.
No. It sounds like Jimi Hendrix.
Wait a second. It's not even midnight.
Blue haze.
I don't know where you've been.
No, she's playing somewhere.
But the point that I'm trying to make is mail-in ballots. I still am at a puzzle as to when that cache of votes gets counted. And we have not been accounting for that. Now, the projection...
What do you mean we haven't been accounting for it?
Well,
we haven't called those races.
Right, that's why. But if you could think about the clear direction of this night in the direction of President Trump, it would seem to me that you would also say, well, gee, turnout seems to have gone up on both sides. And the president's strategy was to have big vote tonight, election night, for him. And we may be seeing some of that reflected. The question is then, where are those mail-in ballots? Did they exist if, in fact, turnout is up, as we believe, on both the Republican and Democratic side?
Right, and I still think that there is a question in some of these states about the absentee ballots that have not come back.
Yeah.
And we're talking about tens of thousands of them, and the difference in the vote is less than that.
Correct, and that's why it's this night, to me, feels like that, Chris, that purple haze.
All right, we're moving on.
But I just feel
we're moving on.
I feel like I'm not sure what's going on, but I do think that clearly President Trump's doing much better than I would have anticipated.
All right, Chris, let's keep it PG-13. What do you got?
I think this night is totally up for grabs still. I agree that the early, easy Biden victory is off the board, but that was one of three scenarios. The other scenario was a narrow Biden win and a narrow Trump win. And those both are still absolutely open. And, you know, while it sure looks like Biden is going to lose Florida, the fact that the Fox News decision team hasn't called Florida yet says to me, maybe it's a small margin, but there's still up for grabs. The fact that North Carolina is too close to call, that Georgia is, because of irregularities. We haven't really gotten anything firm on Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin or Arizona. Basically, if it were a tennis match, I'm now going to switch from each side is holding serve. And they're winning the states they were expected to win, and the states that were up for grabs are still up for grabs. I think the story of this night has really not been told yet.
Yeah, which is exactly what we were told from the very beginning, to sort of go slowly and be patient and wait for these waves. This is an unprecedented situation to have 100 million early votes that need to be counted. They're paper, they've got to be opened up and all of that. Just with regard to Georgia, Fulton County is now going to stop counting at 10:30 p.m. and will resume their count at tomorrow morning. So don't expect,
So that's Pennsylvania and Georgia, that we're not going to get any answer on tonight.
No Philadelphia count, no Fulton County count until tomorrow. So those are huge chunks of votes in both of those states.
So we got North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Iowa all seem to be toss-ups still at this hour, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
And we still haven't called Florida, right?
We have not. But, somebody on this desk called Florida and they had to take it back 20 years ago.
I can't imagine that.
I think we may have
We're still reeling from it.
And the call turned out to be right, didn't it?
It did.
In the end,
I'm just
exactly.
joking.
37 days.
I'm just
It just took them a few days to catch up to
later,
you.
but it turned out right.
But it was right all wrong.
All right, 4 more states closing at the polls in coming minutes. We'll have some new info on the other side of the break. And as Democrats hold on to their majority in the House,
Republicans are looking to hold their majority in the Senate. We're going to take a look at where some of those hotly contested races, very interesting night for these Senate races, that is next.
Once weekly Ozempic is helping many people with type 2 diabetes like Emily lower their blood sugar. A majority of adults who took Ozempic reached an A1C under 7 and maintained it.
Here's your A1C.
Oh, my A1C is under 7.
And you may lose weight. Adults who took Ozempic lost on average up to 12 pounds.
I lost almost 12 pounds. Oh!
For those also with known heart disease, Ozempic lowers the risk of major cardiovascular events such as heart attack, stroke, or death.
It lowers the risk. Oh? And I only have to take it once a week. Oh.
Ozempic is not for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not share needles or pens. Don't reuse needles. Do not take Ozempic if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Ozempic. Stop taking Ozempic and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Tell your doctor if you have diabetic retinopathy or vision changes. Taking Ozempic with a sulfonylurea or insulin may increase low blood sugar risk. Common side effects are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, and constipation. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
Once weekly Ozempic is helping me reach my blood sugar goal.
You may pay as little as $25 for a 1-month or 3-month prescription. Ask your healthcare provider today about once weekly Ozempic.
Okay, Limu, you said it. Then as I spike it, I'll tell them how Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance, so they only pay for what they need. Got it? Did you get that? Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist recommended heart health supplement for people taking cholesterol-lowering statin drugs. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 because it has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol is the brand I trust.
Back here on election.
Trust.
Back here on election night, let's go back to Bill Hemmer with a look at where we stand right now. A lot of places we're still waiting for.
I tell you, there is so much action on this board. I'll just give a spin here in Pennsylvania right now. I mentioned a few moments ago that the Trump team thinks that the blue-collar worker is coming home in Pennsylvania, northeastern corner of the state here. There is some evidence that's happening, although it's still a little bit early here. Lackawanna County, just keeping an eye on it because it's gotten so much attention with Scranton, PA. Joe Biden was there. Donald Trump has been there as well. So you can pop around right here. Luzerne is one of the counties that the president flipped in Pennsylvania in 2016 with an edge over Joe Biden there. So just watching all this now develop, Pittsburgh in the west and Philadelphia down here in the southeast. There are at least 6 counties, by the way, I think it's 7 total, that have said they will not count mail ballots tonight. And all those counties were won easily by Donald Trump in 2016. Not a ton of votes here, but they go right along the border here with Ohio. Greene County is going to wait till tomorrow. Beaver County is going to wait as well. Mercer County also, where you get 73% of the vote in that county. So you're going to see a little of this action tomorrow roll in from some of these counties that said, we don't have enough poll workers to run the boost today to make sure that the vote goes smoothly, and that's why they said we're going to punt on the mail ballots until tomorrow. So we'll keep an eye on that. I mentioned the blue-collar worker. I think this is fascinating, guys. We talked about it earlier. Just want to double back a little bit to a moment here in northeastern Ohio. Here's what I want to show you. Okay, wow, it just changed yet again. In 2016, we knew Trump was in the game when northeastern Ohio was flipping. From 2012, it was all Democrat. 2016, the president flipped these counties. In 2020, look where they are again. Here is the point now, okay? Up here in Ashtabula County, president's got 60% of the votes. 4 years ago, same number here, he had 60% of the votes. 2020, down here in Trumbull County, 54.6. 4 years ago, he's outperforming his number from 4 years ago. What does that mean? That means that blue-collar Democrats who crossed over and voted for President Trump are still with him in 2020. So you can make the case now, if these voters are with him on the eastern border of Ohio, so too are the same in Pennsylvania on the other side of the border there. And that is something that will play